Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. Here are the headlines that we are tracking for you this evening. The sensex and the nifty failed to hold on to their opening gains. Selling intensifies in the broader markets with the mid-cap index losing over 1,200 points. PSU stocks see profit booking from record levels, wiping out 3.5 lakh crore rupees in market cap today. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das holds a post-budget meeting with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, rules out any review of the Paytm decision, calling it well thought out. Also says lower government borrowing projected in the budget frees up resources for the private sector, helps moderate inflation. Sajjan Jindal-led JSW Group is planning an integrated EV manufacturing facility in Odisha's Qatar. Proposes an investment of 40,000 crores, aims to commission the plant within 3 years. SpiceJet plans to lay off 10 to 15% of its workforce, which could impact around 1,500 jobs. The airline hopes to save 100 crore rupees per year. The decision comes after SpiceJet decided to make a bid to acquire Go First. A detergent manufacturer moves the Supreme Court against the Delhi High Court's order upholding the constitutionality of GST anti-profiteering norms. Many others are expected to follow suit. The Apex Court issues a notice to the union government asking it to appear in the matter. The Delhi Police imposes a ban on large gatherings till the 12th of March ahead of a farmers' march to the capital. Barricades and barbed wires erected around Delhi's borders as more than 200 farmer unions from Punjab embark on a protest march. Qatar releases all 8 former Indian Navy veterans who were on death row due to an alleged case of espionage. 7 of them have already returned to India. 1 is yet to arrive. Nawaz Sharif and Bilawal Bhutto begin formal talks on forming a coalition government after elections threw up a hung National Assembly. Reports suggest that PML Nawaz wants to keep the Prime Minister posts to themselves while offering Bhutto's Pakistan's People Party the post of the President, Assembly Speaker and Senate Chairman. Israel's military says 2 hostages were rescued from Rafah after overnight strikes. Hamas claims 67 people, including women and children, died during Israeli raids. The US president has warned Israel against a full-scale ground offensive in the overcrowded city of Rafah. US presidential candidate and former President Donald Trump says he would encourage Russia to attack any NATO member that fails to pay its bills. White House calls the comments appalling and unhinged. The NATO chief says such comments undermine security and put allies at higher risk. Let's start with the market action. Volatility continuing to weigh heavy on the Wall Street as the Sensex and the Nifty failed to hold on to their opening gains, finally closing in the red. The Sensex down about 523 points, the Nifty down 166. The Nifty mid-cap saw big cuts today, down by about 2.5%. And look at that, that's the Nifty PSC index, lost almost 4% today. So a significant pressure on the PSCs this afternoon, and that continues. The PSU stocks are clearly feeling the heat after that record high last week. Since then, we've seen that index decline sharply, especially in the last 2 trading sessions. Today's sell-off has wiped out 3.5 lakh crore rupees in market cap for PSU stocks. Prashant is standing by now with the market wrap. Prashant, not a particularly great start to the trading week.
Right. For this last several days, we've been talking about the market not being very clear in terms of what it wants to do next, because you have large sell-offs not being followed up with sort of, the market following up on the downside and vice versa as well. In a way, today's been no different because on Friday the market went up and today we had a large correction. But, it looked, the general texture looked a little weakish and a little more definitive, maybe because it was not just the Nifty which was correcting, it was the broader market which saw a fair bit of profit taking come through. The Nifty is up on your screen, just under 1% cut. The Nifty Bank fell about 1.8%. The small cap index was down about 4.5% plus. But sectorally speaking, it is PSUs. Huge rally in all these sort of names and all these sectors. I mean, I think the PSU index this year, even after this fall, is up about 12% or so, as opposed to the Nifty, etc., which is largely flattish. So, some of those gains were given back, and, across the CPSE, PSU Bank, PSU index, there was between 4 and 5% cuts that we saw. I'll come to stocks in just a bit from now on the broader market, but large caps here. Coal India, 5% pullback. Hero MotoCorp saw a 4% pullback. BPCL, ONGC, Tata Steel, NTPC were some of the 2-3% kind of cuts that we had come through. Gains, not very many, but Apollo Hospitals, meaningful, 2.5 higher after Friday's gains. Dr. Reddy's and Divi's Laboratories were other names which were up about 2.5% each. Good follow-up on Apollo Hospitals after what we saw last week. Now, in the broader market, as I said, PSU saw large cuts. NHPC down 15, IRFC down 13, SJVN down 20%. There was RVNL down about 11.5, IRCON down 11%, Bharat Dynamics down about 12%, RailTel down 9%. Hudco, NBCC, Wright, Central Bank, Hindustan Copper, GMDC, Engineers India. I mean, you get the idea. Large sell-off across a whole swath of public sector names, both banks, financials, non-financials, getting sold in terms of the trade today. There were other movers as well outside of the PSU space. Bharat Forge, of course, reported numbers. There was a sharp 13% cut today. There were names like Amber, which reported violently to earnings, about a 12% cut. And there was something like HBL Power, which had gone up about 2-3 times in the last 2 years, which saw about a 10% or pullback as well. These are just pullbacks. Sharp, though, they're pullbacks after what has been an exceptional run in many parts of this market. Back to you.
Prashant, many thanks for joining us. That's the stock market action. Let's talk about crude oil prices staying above $80 a barrel, and this despite some correction from last week's gains. Prices did rise after Israel rejected Hamas's ceasefire proposal and mounted an attack on southern Gaza. The overall unrest in the West Asian region, with US attacking Iran-linked militant groups and Houthis attacking cargo ships in the Red Sea, is also pushing prices higher. Back home, RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das held a post-budget meeting with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and other officials in North Block today. Speaking post the meetings, the governor defended the action against Paytm, ruled out any review of the RBI's decision. The governor reiterated that comments made during the monetary policy last week, saying the decision on Paytm was, and I quote, well thought out. The governor also said that an FAQ on Paytm will be issued shortly.
There is no, at the moment, let me say very clear, there is no review of the decision. If you are expecting a review of the decision, let me very clearly say there is no review of the decision. FAQ which we are proposing to issue is targeting the inconvenience or targeting the issues faced by the customers and the customers and the depositors, like all the FASTag holders or the wallet users or the account holders. कस्टमर इंटरेस्ट में जो इश्यूज है उसको हम अभी FAQ में डील कर रहे हैं, लेकिन रिव्यू ऑफ डिसीजन फिलहाल ऐसा कोई रिव्यू ऑफ डिसीजन इज नॉट ऑन द टेबल.
Well, that is the RBI governor making it clear that there is no review of the RBI's decision with respect to Paytm Payments Bank. What the FAQ will deal with are clarifications pertaining to operations of the wallet and, of course, what it means as far as consumers are concerned. Shares of Paytm's parent company, 197 Communications, was up in trade today after 2 consecutive weeks of losses. Late Friday evening, the company announced that it has set up a committee to focus on strengthening compliance and regulatory matters. After the RBI's crackdown, the committee will be headed by former SEBI chairman M. Damodaran. Further, the company also confirmed the resignation of Paytm Payments Bank independent director Manju Agarwal from the board in an exchange filing. Remember, that's a story that our colleague Ritu Singh had broken. Well, the big corporate story this evening, the JSW Group has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Odisha government to set up an integrated electric vehicle and battery manufacturing plant in Qatar. The JSW Group has proposed to invest over 40,000 crore rupees. Parikshit is standing by now with more details. Parikshit, the JSW Group going big on its EV plans. First, that joint venture announcement that came in with MG Motor India, and now significant investment plan for the state of Odisha.
Well, what JSW Group is looking at is an integrated manufacturing facility for electric vehicles and battery manufacturing as well. Now, if this goes through, as is being proposed right now, JSW Group will be the first company in India to have such an integrated facility which has a complete supply chain for electric vehicles in one area. So what are they trying to do with this 40,000 crore investment? Well, this facility would be spread over Cuttack and Paradeep. They're looking to set up a manufacturing line for 300,000 electric cars per year. They also want to manufacture commercial vehicles, and they want to have a capacity of 100,000 electric commercial vehicles per year. When it comes to battery manufacturing, they want to set up a plant of 50 gigawatt hour, which caters not just to electric vehicles, but energy storage systems. They want to have a copper smelter on the site, and also a lithium refining plant which has a capacity of 60,000 tons per annum. They also want to locally manufacture e-powertrain components in this facility. So as you can see, this is a complete integrated supply chain that they're talking about. We've not seen this so far in India. Yes, Ola Electric has an integrated manufacturing facility, and they are going to start manufacturing cells also, but JSW would be on a much bigger scale. How will this happen? Well, this will be a separate company under the JSW group. It will be privately held. At the same time, construction could begin by the end of the year once all the approvals come through. They want to commence manufacturing, commence operations in the next 2 to 3 years. This is completely separate from the joint venture with MG Motor India that was announced earlier last year. They recently got approval for acquiring this 35 to 38% stake in MG Motor India by the Competition Commission of India. But that partnership will move separately, and this is JSW Group's independent EV manufacturing operations.
All right. Many thanks, Parikshit, for joining us. India's UPI services were introduced in Sri Lanka and Mauritius in a virtual meeting attended by Prime Ministers of all three nations. The RuPay card services were also launched in Mauritius as part of the initiative. The launch enables the availability of UPI settlement services for Indians travelling to Sri Lanka and Mauritius, as well as for Mauritian nationals and Sri Lankans travelling to India. Remember, France was the first European nation to allow UPI payments from Indian tourists visiting the Eiffel Tower earlier this month. Lalita Jewellery is planning to enter the Lal Street with a 1,600 crore rupee IPO. It's a leading jewellery brand with a strong presence in the south. The IPO will largely be a fresh issue. The company is expected to file its draft papers by March. Lalita Jewellery reported a revenue of over 13,000 crores and an EBITDA of 550 crores in the last fiscal. SpiceJet is laying off around 10 to 15% of its workforce in an attempt to reduce costs. The airline hopes to save 100 crore rupees per year. The move comes after SpiceJet threw its hat into the ring as a suitor for Go First, but this is not necessarily linked to that decision. Danish Anand joins us now with more details. Danish, take us through why SpiceJet has decided to lay off over 1,400 people.
Well, Indian budget airline SpiceJet is likely to lay off around 10 to 15% of its total employee base in order to reduce cost, and this roughly amounts to 1,400 to 1,500 employees. SpiceJet sources told CNBC-TV18 that this step is being taken as part of its turnaround plan, and through this, the company is aiming to save rupees 100 crores annually, and this exercise is expected to get completed by the end of the current financial year. SpiceJet currently has an employee headcount between 9,000 to 9,500 employees. The layoffs are likely to happen across departments, and the exposure on pilots is likely to be quite less. SpiceJet's monthly salary bill is around 60 crores, which is likely to get reduced further. Sources said that pre-COVID, the airline had a fleet of 118 aircraft, which has now been reduced to 40, of which 10 are wet leased. This step is also being taken to increase confidence in investors, and last year in December, the airline had raised 2,250 crore rupees through 40 investors, and it has also shown interest in bidding for grounded Gophers. SpiceJet spokesperson said that this is part of its turnaround, a cost-cutting strategy following the recent fund infusion. The airline has initiated several measures, including manpower rationalization, to achieve profitable growth. The airline is expected to take furthermore steps in order to reduce more fixed cost.
All right, Danish, many thanks for joining us. That is SpiceJet. Now, the Supreme Court has allowed ArcelorMittal, Nippon Steel and Indian Oil to appoint arbitrators to resolve their dispute involving Essar Steel. The development comes days after ArcelorMittal, in a U-turn, agreed to take the arbitration route on IOC's 8,700 crore rupee claim. The Apex Court also set aside a Delhi High Court order that had earlier quashed IOC's plea for an arbitral tribunal. The court directs both parties to appoint their respective arbitrators within a week's time. Now, the Supreme Court has issued a notice to the government on a plea against the Delhi High Court's order upholding the constitutionality of GST anti-profiteering norms. The petition by detergent manufacturer XL Rasayan has argued that the absence of methodology makes the norms arbitrary and vague. Remember, over 100 companies, including Hindustan Unilever, had filed petitions against the provisions in the Delhi High Court. Timsy is standing by with more details. Timsy, the Delhi High Court had ruled in favour of the government in the matter of anti-profiteering laws of the GST. Now, the matter being taken up by the Supreme Court. Take us through the details.
In what would be a key matter for the industry, the Supreme Court today issued a notice to the union government in a case relating to the constitutional validity of anti-profiteering provisions under the goods and service tax regime. taking cognizance of a special leave petition against the Delhi High Court order upholding the constitutional validity of these provisions. The three-judge bench comprising of Chief Justice Chandrachud, Justice J.B. Pardiwal and Justice Manoj Mishra have asked Centre to appear in the matter. So who had filed the petition? Well, the petitioner is a detergent manufacturer called Excel Rasayan Private Limited, who has moved the Supreme Court seeking relief, submitting that the Delhi High Court did not consider the fact that the anti-profiteering provisions are arbitrary and vague. The matter is of importance as over 100 companies, including HUL, Patanjali, Jubilant FoodWorks, Philips, Subway, etc., and several others had filed petitions against the anti-profiteering provisions in the High Court. But 2 weeks back, Delhi High Court had upheld the anti-profiteering provisions of the GST law. So let's see what is the final fate of this case, because definitely the case will be an interesting development that the industry will be watching out for.
All right, Timsy, many thanks for joining us. Now, Franklin Templeton continues to be committed to the India market. That's the word coming in from Global CEO Jenny Johnson. Speaking exclusively to CNBC-TV18, Johnson said this is India's decade. She also spoke about the winding up of mutual funds by Franklin Templeton 3 years ago, calling it a painful decision and the lessons learned from that. Take a look. You ran into a fair amount of rough weather in 2021, to sort of put it mildly. But what kind of course correction have we seen you do post that to deal with the regulatory action that was taken, and what the road ahead looks like now in terms of the cleanup?
Unfortunately, we did run in with COVID. We ran into real serious liquidity issues in our fixed income portfolios, and had to make an incredibly difficult decision of closing down those funds to preserve value for clients. And the problem is you have a responsibility to both manage your clients' assets and give them good returns. And the good news is, since then, we have paid back almost 110% on average across the portfolios. But we didn't meet the liquidity needs that people had at those times. And that's a real shortfalling. But in order, again, to give kind of the fairness across all the investors, we made that tough decision, even though it has been painful from a reputational standpoint. And a lot of people thought we'd exit India at that point. But again, looking at it, India from the long-term perspective, we think this is India's decade.
Well, you can catch that exclusive conversation with Jenny Johnson at 7:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. We are going to head into break, but up next, the Delhi police imposes a ban on large gatherings till the 12th of March ahead of a farmers' march to the capital. That and more when we return. Well, the top international story, Israel's military has said that 2 hostages were rescued from Rafah after overnight strikes. Hamas claims 67 people, including women and children, died during the Israeli raids. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has warned Israel against a full-scale ground offensive in the overcrowded city of Rafah. Nawaz Sharif and Bilawal Bhutto begin formal talks on forming a coalition government after elections threw up a hung National Assembly. Reports suggest that PML Nawaz wants to keep the Prime Minister's post while offering Bhutto's Pakistan People Party the post of the President, the Assembly Speaker and the Senate Chairman. Former US President and Republican frontrunner Donald Trump has said he would encourage Russia to attack any NATO member that fails to pay its bills. The White House has called the comments appalling and unhinged.
The Secretary General Stoltenberg, well, I don't know if he is anymore, but he was my biggest fan. He said all these presidents came in, they'd make a speech, they'd leave, and that was it. And they all owed money, and they wouldn't pay it. I came in, I made a speech, and I said, you got to pay up. They asked me that question. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay, you're delinquent, He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills. And the money came flowing in.
Well, that's Donald Trump. 7 of the 8 former Indian Navy officers arrested in Qatar over alleged espionage have returned to India. The 8th Indian national has also been released, and the government is working with the Qatar government to see how quickly he can return. Foreign Secretary said Prime Minister Modi personally constantly supervised the developments in this matter. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar wins the trust vote on the floor of the Assembly comfortably. Weeks after dumping the RJD, the Congress left and returning to its alliance with the BJP months ahead of the General Assembly. There were 129 votes in his favour. Opposition MLAs had staged a walkout before the vote. RJD leader Tejasvi Yadav took a jibe at Nitish Kumar, asked if the Prime Minister could guarantee he wouldn't switch again.
कि दशरथ तो नहीं चाहते थे राम बनवास जाए, लेकिन कैकेयी जरूर चाहती थी कि राम जो है बनवास चले जाएं। मुख्यमंत्री जी, आप हमको बेटा कहे हैं, हम चाहते हैं कि आप लंबी उम्र रहिए और जो सिलसिला आपने चलाया था उसको जरूर आगे चलाइए, उसमें हमारा समर्थन रहेगा, रोजगार बांटिए। ए मोदी जी के गारंटी वालों, क्या मोदी जी गारंटी लेंगे? फिर से पलटेंगे कि नहीं पलटेंगे, जरा बता के दिखा दो।
और 2005 से जब काम शुरू हुआ है और उसके बाद बिहार का कितना विकास हुआ है, और हमारे पहले इनके पिता को और इनकी माता को 15 साल तक काम करने का मौका मिला, तो क्या हुआ था बिहार में जी? शाम में कोई भी आदमी घर से बाहर निकलता था, आप जरा सोच लीजिए, और कहीं कोई सड़क था, कहीं कोई रास्ता था।
Well, Nitish Kumar wins the trust vote. Another setback for the Congress in Maharashtra. Veteran leader Ashok Chavan, who also served as the Chief Minister of Maharashtra for close to 2 years, has resigned from the party. He's also quit as an MLA. Addressing a press conference, Chavan said he will take a decision in the next few days on what next. Chavan is the third big exit from Maharashtra Congress this year after Baba Siddiqui and Milind Deora. While Baba Siddiqui has joined the NCP headed by Ajit Pawar, Milind Deora has joined the Chief Minister Eknath Shinde's Shiv Sena. The Delhi Police has imposed Section 144 in the city ahead of the farmers' proposed protest. Security arrangements have been beefed up at the Haryana and UP borders to prevent protesters from entering the capital. Concrete blocks and iron nails have been set up at borders, and there has been an advisory issued for traffic movement. Several farmer associations from Haryana, Punjab and UP have called for a march tomorrow to the national capital to demand a law that guarantees minimum support price for their produce. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. There's a lot more coming up right after this break.